Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to participate in this session. Today, we will be discussing supporting regulation in autistic students and how educators can create more inclusive and neurodiversity affirming classrooms. As classroom teachers and education assistants, we play an important role in shaping students' daily experiences. Our understanding of regulation can significantly impact a student's ability to learn, participate, and feel a sense of belonging at school. Throughout this presentation, I invite you to reflect on your own experiences working with autistic students. Think about situations where a student may have appeared disengaged, overwhelmed, or resistant. Instead of viewing these behaviors as problems to fix, we will explore how they may be communicating important information about a student's needs. Today's discussion is grounded in the neurodiversity paradigm, which encourages us to recognize autism as a natural variation in human development rather than a deficit. We will focus on practical strategies that can be implemented in classrooms to support student success while promoting inclusion, dignity, and belonging. Before we begin, I would like to review our learning objectives. By the end of this session, participants will be able to define self regulation and understand why it is essential for learning and participation. Participants will also identify common factors that may affect regulation in autistic students, including sensitivities, communication differences, anxiety, and environmental demands. Another objective is to explore practical strategies that can be implemented within classrooms to support students' regulation. These strategies are designed to be realistic, accessible, and beneficial for all learners. Finally, participants will develop an action plan for their own practice. Research suggests that professional learning is most effective when educators leave with the specific actions that they can apply immediately. Therefore, I encourage you to think about one or two ideas from today's session that could be implemented within your own classroom or school setting. As we move through the presentation, consider how these objectives connect to the students you currently support and how the information may influence your future practice. What is regulation? Self regulation refers to a person's ability to manage emotions, attention, sensory experiences, and behavior in response to everyday demands. Regulation is often misunderstood as simply controlling behavior, but it involves much more than that. When students are regulated, they are able to focus, communicate, problem solve, and engage in learning activities. In contrast, when students become dysregulated, they may struggle to process information, follow directions, or interact effectively with others. For autistic students, regulation can be influenced by many factors, including sensory input, communication demands, social expectations, and changes in routine. A student who appears inattentive or non compliant may actually be experiencing significant stress or sensory overload. As educators, it's important to recognize that learning and regulation are closely connected. Students cannot access academic learning effectively when they are overwhelmed or distressed. This understanding shifts our focus from managing behavior to supporting students' overall well being and readiness to learn. One helpful phrase to remember is that regulation comes before expectation. Before we expect the students to engage, participate, or complete tasks, we need to ensure they feel safe, supported, and regulated. Several theories help explain why regulation support is important for autistic students and guide our educational practices. An important theory is self regulation theory. According to Shanker, self regulation involves managing emotions, attention, behavior, and stress. When students experience high levels of stress, their ability to learn and participate may decrease. Educators can support regulation by reducing stressors and providing appropriate supports. And also, by closely related to this concept, there is another theory. It's about co regulation. Co regulation occurs when supportive adults help students identify their needs, manage emotions, and develop regulation skills. This reminds us that the students do not learn regulation independently, they often require guidance and support from trusted adults. And finally, from Bronfenbrenner ecological systems theory which highlights the importance of the environment. Student behavior is influenced not only by individual characteristics but also by relationships, classroom practices, school culture, and family support. This theory reinforces the idea that when we change the environment, we can improve student participation and regulation. Autistic students often experience the school environment differently than their neurotypical peers. Everyday situations that may seem manageable to some students can be overwhelming for autistic learners. For example, a classroom may contain bright lights, multiple conversations, unexpected noises, and frequent transitions. While these experiences may go unnoticed by some students, they can create significant sensory demands for autistic students. In addition to sensory factors, communication differences can also affect regulation. Students may need additional processing time to understand verbal information or express their thoughts. When communication demands exceed a student's capacity, stress and frustration may increase. Changes in routine can also be challenging. Many autistic students benefit from predictability because it helps reduce uncertainty and anxiety. Unexpected schedule changes or unclear expectations may contribute to dysregulation. Understanding these experiences helps educators move away from assumptions that the students are choosing to behave in certain ways. Instead, we can recognize that behavior often reflects how a student is experiencing their environment. The neurodiversity paradigm has become an increasingly important framework for understanding autism. Rather than viewing autism as a disorder that needs to be cured or corrected, neurodiversity recognizes neurological differences as a natural part of human diversity. This perspective encourages educators to focus on acceptance, accessibility, and inclusion. Instead of asking how autistic students can adapt to fit existing systems, we ask how educational environments can adapt to better support diverse learners. For example, if a student needs movement breaks to remain regulated, the solution is not necessarily to teach them to sit still for longer periods. Instead, we might consider how movement can be incorporated into the learning environment in meaningful ways. The neurodiversity paradigm also encourages us to recognize strengths. Many autistic individuals demonstrate strength in areas such as attention to detail, creativity, memory, honesty, and deep interests. These strengths should be acknowledged and valued within educational settings. Ultimately, neurodiversity reminds us that inclusion is not about making students appear less autistic. It is about creating environments where autistic students can participate authentically and successfully. When autistic students are dysregulated, their behavior is often a form of communication. Behaviors such as leaving their seat, refusing work, becoming emotional, or withdrawing may indicate sensory overload, anxiety, frustration, confusion, fatigue, or the need for a break. Instead of focusing only on the behavior, educators should consider what the student may be trying to communicate and how the environment or support strategies can be adjusted to meet their needs. One of the most effective ways to support regulation in autistic students is by creating a predictable and structured learning environment. Many autistic students experience anxiety when routines are unclear or when unexpected changes occur. Visual schedules can help students understand what will happen throughout the day and reduce uncertainty. When the changes are unavoidable, providing advance notice allows students time to prepare and adjust. Breaking larger tasks into smaller steps can also make learning activities feel more manageable and less overwhelming. Consistent routines and clear expectations help students know what is expected of them and create a sense of safety within the classroom. While these strategies are particularly beneficial for autistic students, they often improve learning and participation for all students. Sensory experiences can have a significant impact on a student's ability to regulate and engage in learning. Some autistic students may become overwhelmed by noise, bright lights, crowded spaces, or extended periods of sitting. Providing movement breaks throughout the day can help students regulate their energy levels and maintain focus. Sensory tools such as noise reducing headphones, fidgets, or alternative seating can also support participation. A quiet regulation space gives students a place to calm themselves when they feel overwhelmed. It's important to remember that these supports should be viewed as accommodations that help students access learning rather than rewards that must be earned. By recognizing and responding to sensory needs, educators can create environments that support student well being, regulation, and success. This diagram highlights several strategies that can support self regulation in autistic students. It reminds us that there is no single strategy that works for every student. Instead, educators should use a combination of supports based on individual needs and strengths. Some strategies focus on creating predictable routines and structured transitions, which can reduce anxiety and uncertainty. Others support sensory needs through sensory friendly activities, movement opportunities, or access to calming tools. Teaching emotional awareness and self management skills can also help students recognize their feelings and develop regulation strategies over time. Role playing and social practice activities provide opportunities to build communication and social skills in a supportive environment. Positive reinforcement can encourage engagement and confidence, while mindfulness and relaxation exercises may help some students manage stress and emotions. The key message is that regulation support should be proactive, individualized, and focused on helping students feel safe, supported, and ready to learn. Let's consider the example of Liam, a grade 5 autistic student. Liam frequently leaves his seat, covers his ears, refuses certain tasks, and becomes upset during transitions. At first glance, some educators may interpret these behaviors as resistance. However, when we examine the situation more closely, we begin to see possible explanations for Liam's behavior. The classroom is often noisy during group activities. Transitions between subjects are not always announced in advance, and the students are expected to remain seated for extended periods. Each of these factors may contribute to Liam's dysregulation. Instead of asking how to stop Liam's behavior, we can ask different questions. What is Liam communicating? What barriers might be experiencing? What adjustments could help him participate more successfully? This shift is in thinking is critical. It moves us from a creative approach to a proactive and supportive approach. Rather than focusing on consequences, we focus on understanding and problem solving. As educators, our goal is to identify the underlying need and provide supports that help students succeed. One afternoon, the class was unexpectedly asked to stop their work and attend a school assembly. The classroom became noisy as the students packed up and prepared to leave. Liam began covering his ears, pacing around the room, and repeatedly asking when they would return. When we encouraged him to join the class, he became increasingly upset and refused to leave the classroom. Liam became dysregulated because of unexpected change in routine and the increased noise level in the classroom. His behaviors, such as covering his ears and repeatedly asking questions, were signs that he has feeling overwhelmed and anxious. Rather than viewing his response as a resistance to change, it is important to recognize that he was communicating a need for support. Instead of focusing on the behavior, we focused on the cause of Liam's distress. By providing visual support, reducing sensory input, giving him extra processing time, and offering support from a trusted adult, Liam was able to regulate his emotions and successfully participate in the assembly. We have spent time discussing regulation, neurodiversity, and inclusive practices. Now, I would like us to reflect on our own learning environments and consider how inclusive they are for autistic students. This activity is not intended to evaluate or criticize anyone's teaching practice. Instead, it is an opportunity to reflect on what it is already working well and identify areas where small improvements could make a meaningful difference. Please work with a partner or a small group. Review each section of the checklist and discuss whether these practices are currently present in your classroom or school setting. As you move through the checklist, think about the experiences of autistic students and whether the environment supports their communication, regulation, and participation. After completing the checklist, work together as a group to answer the four reflection questions. Take time to discuss each question and listen to different perspectives within your group. There may be different experiences and ideas depending on the grade level, role, and teaching context. As you discuss, think about the practical changes that could realistically be implemented. The goal is not to redesign an entire classroom overnight, but to identify one meaningful step that could improve accessibility and inclusion. You will have approximately 10 to 15 minutes to complete the checklist and discuss the reflection questions. After that, we will come back together as a large group. I will invite each group to share one strength they identified and one action they would like to implement in the future. As groups share their responses, I will record common themes and ideas. This will help us to see that many inclusive practices are achievable and can benefit all learners, not just autistic students. The purpose of this activity is to move from learning about inclusion to actively planning how we can apply these ideas in our daily practices. Thank you for your thoughtful discussions during this activity. I would now like us to come back together as a large group and share some of the ideas that emerged from your conversations. I will invite each group to share one strength they identified and one strategy and answer these the following questions that are on the slide here. It's As a group share, pay attention to common themes that emerge across our discussions. You may have noticed that many of the strategies discussed are not applicable or expensive. Often, small changes such as providing visual schedules, creating predictable routines, offering movement breaks, or reducing sensory barriers can make a meaningful difference for autistic students. As we hear from each group, consider how these ideas connect to the concept we discussed earlier, including the neurodiversity paradigm, co regulation, and the importance of creating supportive learning environments. One important message from today's session is that regulation is not solely the responsibility of the student. Educators can play a significant role by adjusting the environment, building positive relationships, and providing proactive supports that help students feel safe and ready to learn. Before moving on, I encourage everyone to think about one idea shared today that you could apply in your own practice. These small steps can contribute to more inclusive, accessible, and neurodiversity affirming classrooms for autistic students. Supporting regulation is an important part of the inclusive education. By reducing barriers and providing appropriate supports, Educators can help autistic students participate meaningfully in learning. These practices align with the BC commitment to equity, accessibility, student centered planning, and neurodiversity affirming education. Here are some key takeaways. Regulation is essential for learning. Behavior communicates needs. Autistic students benefit from proactive supports. Small changes in the environment can have a significant impact on a student's ability to regulate, participate, and succeed. Inclusive practices create better outcomes for all learners. As we conclude, I would like to share a few resources that can support educators in helping autistic students with regulation. Autism Community Training provides webinars, articles, and practical resources related to autism, regulation, communication, and inclusive education. It is an excellent source of professional learning for educators. Popard offers self regulation resources specifically designed for educational settings. These resources include strategies such as movement breaks, sensory supports, visual tools, and co regulation practices. The zones of regulation is a framework that helps the students identify their emotions and learn strategies to manage different states of regulation. It can be adapted to meet individual students' needs. Autism BC provides workshops, educational materials, and information that support inclusive practices and student well being. Finally, the Autistic Self Advocacy Network offers resources created by autistic individuals. These resources help educators better understand autistic perspectives and promote neurodiversity affirming practices. I encourage you to explore these resources and consider how they could support regulation, participation, and inclusion in your own classrooms. And here are the references. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation.